Okay, you've bought your guitar, you've bought yourself a guitar tuner, and the problem with the tuner is that you're not always sure if you are playing the note in the right pitch. So you could tune your bass note, for example, bass E. You could tune that and accidentally tune it to the wrong key. So the first thing I'm going to do is just to tune my guitar so that you've got something which you can compare with. And it should be pretty much in tune, but nevertheless. So here we go. We're going to go from the bass note right through to the top note. And by the way, I haven't mentioned it, but you really should cut your nails before you start in order to make sure that your fingers can press down on the notes properly, on the strings properly. So here we go. Here's the E, and that's in tune. So I'm going to do that again. So you really want to, with your bass note, if you bass on your bass E, if you tune your guitar to this note, then you'll be in the right pitch, and then you won't break any strings. So this is, I'm going to go through the full 6 strings, going from the bass note to the top note. Here we go. That's the E string. So just tune your E string to that sound. The next one is the A string. And again, that's pretty much in tune, just maybe slightly sharp. And when you tune, your tuner itself might go a bit flat or a little bit sharp to start with, but then settle down. And once it's settled down, it's at that point that's where you really want your note to be correctly in tune, your string correctly in tune. So that's the A. And then the next one we have is the D. That's the 4th string, that's a D. The next one is the 3rd string, the G. And then we've got the B. Sounds a little bit out. No, that's okay. And that's the E, the top string. So I'm just going to run through all of those again. E, A, D, G, B, E. Now, the way I refer to the strings is if I say the top string, I mean the highest pitch, which some people would refer to as the bottom string, but I think that's a little bit confusing, just because it's the bottom of the guitar, the way you're looking down. Nevertheless, I consider this to be the bottom string because of the note, because of the pitch. So I'll switch my tuner off. Now, we've got a guitar that's in tune, and from here, the normal thing to do is to learn 3 chords, which is A, and then D, and then E. Now those 3 strings, those 3 chords will allow you to play many, many different songs. But apart from learning those chords, which you'll really need to look for a chord chart, or you may well have that in a book to show you how to hold those 3 down. Now, I find, in fact, when I was learning to play the guitar, one of the things that I found was that just trying to learn those 3 chords was kind of a bit challenging and a bit boring as well. So okay, you learn something like a really basic version of Blowing in the Wind, or something similar to that using those 3 chords, and that's fine, but it's not really for you if you've got an electric guitar. Maybe you want to learn some other stuff as well, whether it's acoustic or electric, I found that playing some other bits and pieces as well, just something that give you a sound that was a bit more meaningful, that helped you whilst trying to get to grips with those three chords. Now, one of the first things I have learnt was a little boogie woogie bass run, and it goes like this. And that's all it was to start with. You can learn a little bit of a finishing bit to that afterwards, but let's not worry about that too much. Now, I use a plectrum for some things, but then for other things I choose to use my fingers instead, but it's really a matter of personal preference. And what I would recommend is a start point is, particularly as you're learning electric guitar, is that you really want to be using a plectrum. Now, my plectrum is a nylon plectrum, and I always use nylon plectrums for a couple of reasons. One is that they're quite flexible, so they don't hit the string so strongly as perhaps as a hard plastic pick. And the other thing is, because they're nylon, they don't break. Now, you'll find that plastic plectrums, especially thin plastic plectrums, will break after a while. So nylon is my preferred type of plectrum. Now, to do the boogie woogie, there's a few things I want to tell you about. First of all, if we go through it, we've got open on the E, on the bottom E, and then 4th fret on the bottom E, then the 2nd fret on the A, then the 4th fret on the A, and then the G is open. The G string's open. Sorry, the D string is open. So it's. And what you want to do is run up and down there. Now, don't worry too much about changing over to the other strings, as I'm going to show you shortly. The first thing to do is to get that in your fingers, learning it so that your fingers do the right thing. Now, I always use the same fingers for this. There's a bit of a rule, which is that the fingers own a particular fret. The reason that I say this is because if I use the 3rd finger to hold down the 4th fret on the E string when I do that, then my other fingers are in a natural position to be able to play the 2nd, this one here. It's hard to get to see it on here, but we're just holding that down. So these fingers are in a nice position to be economical in your movement, and that's something which is really important when learning to play the guitar. If your fingers are all over the place, you'll find it really hard to be able to get a nice flowing progress in whatever thing you're choosing to play. So we're going to play this as so the 3rd finger controls anything that happens on the 4th fret of any string, and the 1st finger controls anything that happens on the 2nd fret of any string in this little run. Okay, so you see, it's really, I'm not moving my hand at all, I'm just using my fingers. And it's all such a nice and easy to be able to get your fingers to the next position by following this rule. And perhaps something else that would clarify that, if I play the major scale we'll do this in the key of A, you'll see that what happens with my fingers, my hand barely moves. Okay, so this is just simply about getting this idea in your head that wherever you are, the lowest fret that you play is going to be the 1st finger's responsibility, and then each fret up is going to be 1 finger per fret. So if we go from A through to C, we go A, B flat, B, C. So the fingers own the frets. and it makes it a lot easier for you to be able to learn to play the guitar if you can follow this simple rule. So getting back to the boogie woogie, then take time over this. Don't hurry it. Don't feel that you need to rush the sound. What you want is something which is smooth and flowing. So it doesn't matter about the speed at all, and there's lots of variations of playing this boogie woogie riff that we've got here, but don't worry about that. Just focus on this for now. So it's open 4, and then on the second on the A string, second 4, and then open on the D, and then you run back down the run. So open 4 2 4, open 4 2 4, open 4 2 4, open 4 2 4. All right. So I'm just playing. So it's a really nice, easy little run. And when I was learning to play the guitar, I would simply use things like that as a way of being able to give my fingers some alternative thing to practice, rather than just chords, which can be rather boring. 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 really, it's not the most exciting thing in the world to do, and particularly if you're not going to sing. And if you want to learn the electric guitar, then it kind of feels a bit like, well, that kind of thing feels a little bit redundant to start with. But you nevertheless need to learn this stuff. But for now, if we can get that boogie woogie going. Whoops. But if you can do that, so you run through that and keep running backwards and forwards between the starting on the E string and starting on the A string, then you're going to end up with a recognisable sound, and that will give you a little bit of satisfaction when you're playing the guitar. One other thing that I haven't mentioned really is a start point for this is your home position. So you want to really try and make sure that whatever the shape of your guitar, that you kind of try and make sure that you put your right arm in the same position every time you play, so that you don't it makes things a lot easier, because then when you go to play the strings, they are where you expect them to be. It's just a bit of well, it's a lot of practice, but it's just it's a really good and essential rule for you to be able to get going with the guitar more easily. Now my home position, I'm just going to move this around a little bit. My home position on this guitar is I've got my knee up here, so it's nice and square, so that I've got a level platform for the guitar. The guitar then rests on the knee. I then have my elbow, which is kind of the crook here is tucked in nicely with the guitar. And it's always the same place. Now, I say always, there's going to be times when you can't do this, but if you can try and stick with that as being a little rule, that you'll always try and put your right arm in the same position, then you'll find that the strings are where you want them to be, and the frets are where you want them to be. Now, speaking of frets, one more thing on this little intro I'm going to mention is when you hold down a string, a fret, let's say this one here for the boogie woogie. So this one, if I hold that down there, I get a nice good ringing sound. However, people sometimes go over the top of the fret and get a dead sound, and sometimes they go right at the back and get a buzzy sound. So it's really important that your finger always goes to just a little way behind the fret. and when it's tucked in there nicely, then you're going to get a good clear ringing sound, and it will make your music sound better, and you'll be a lot more satisfied. It's all practice, and when you play something, if you find that it's not sounding right, look at what's happening with your left hand, and look to see that you are holding the frets where they're supposed to be, and that no string that you need to sound is being snagged by a finger or a part of your hand, which is again a common thing people do. So it might be that you're learning to play the A, and you've put your fingers down in more or less the right position, but you're a little bit curled over, so the top string's not playing. So you need to be nice and on your fingertips when you're playing something. So I'll see if I can get it, so you can see there, I'm right on my fingertips holding that key, that chord down. So I think that's everything. Just make sure that you get on your fingertips when you're playing the boogie woogie or whatever you're playing. Make sure that your fingers are right nice and close to the fret. Make sure that nothing else is snagging, no other part of your hand is snagging a string. And take your time, play it nice and slowly to start with. And don't worry about whether or not you get every note is exactly the same length. Worry about getting your fingers in the right position and making the note ring out clearly. And then as time goes by, you'll be able to focus a little bit more on making sure that your time is good. And one of the ways you can do that is by tapping your foot when you're playing, just to try and keep time. But don't worry about that too much for now. All we want to do is to make sure that we've got the basics set, and that we've got ourselves something that we can play on the guitar. So we've tuned up, we've made sure our fingers, nails are cut short. We have decided on what we're going to learn to play with, and I recommend a nylon plectrum, pick is the word, but you don't have to. If you felt more comfortable playing with your fingers or your thumb, which will make you feel more connected to the guitar, then by all means do that. Just playing with my thumb. I'll just move this around a little bit so you can see. So you can use your thumb or use a finger, or actually some people use this. They're just like as if they've got a plectrum in the hand, but use the nail here. I don't particularly like doing that because it's very easy to catch strings accidentally. But some people do that whilst they're learning to play. And you know, if you just give yourself something comfortable to you. To get started in terms of the way that you play, whether it be that you use a plectrum or you use your thumb or you use one of your fingers, whatever. I mean, it really doesn't matter too much to start with because you've got a lot to think about, and as time goes by you can migrate so that you will try different things. There'll be occasions when you might think, well, I don't want to just use a plectrum, I want to use my fingers. I find that things which have got this a sort of arpeggio sound is referred to. The fingers, to me, are an easier way of doing this. It's kind of a more, it's just, I say more connected, and I find the strings I can locate the strings more easily than I can with a plectrum when I'm playing this kind of thing. But we won't worry about that for now. All we want to worry about for now is really just getting that first little bit started. And what I'm going to do is I'll think about a few more bass runs that we can do as well. You know, the kind of classic bluesy sorts of stuff that is going to be of interest. You know, Smoke on the Water. We can have a little look at that, and we can look at some various other little bass runs that I think so you can just have a little go at whilst you're learning other stuff on the guitar at the same time. One little tip is I would suggest that fairly early on you start learning scales. If you're going to learn particularly the pentatonic scale, that will help you to be able to get some nice fun sounds out of your guitar fairly quickly. But again, we'll come on to that at a later stage. So hopefully this little intro is useful. By all means, put comments at the bottom if you've got anything that you want to ask or that you want to suggest about the way I do things. I've been playing the guitar for many years now, and I'm probably stuck with some bad habits as well as some good ones, and therefore the way that I do it might not be the way that somebody else would play a piece of music. But we're all individuals, and you get comfortable with what you want to do. I personally would never be up on stage or earning money for this, so I don't really worry about some of my bad habits. But somebody else who wants to take this seriously would, of course, want to, right from the outset, make sure that they don't have bad habits like mine. Anyway, that's it for this one. Hopefully you found that useful, and you'll let me know. Cheers, bye.